We live in a world where it feels like the absolute final metric for, well, almost everything is purely material, right? Society kind of pushes this single dimensional worldview where your net worth is basically your human worth. But what if the very foundation of this modern economic system is completely broken? Today, we're going to dismantle and rebuild the way we think about money, success, and the economy. We're diving into the deeply ethical, honestly fascinating framework of Islamic economics. It's a true paradigm shift that literally flips our conventional understanding of wealth upside down. So ask yourself honestly, are we all just waking up every single day to chase money? Because from the time we're in school, we're conditioned to pick careers solely based on the highest paycheck. We measure our happiness by the numbers sitting in our bank accounts. But when a society is stripped of spiritual purpose, honesty, and a duty to others, we end up with this highly anxious system just chasing endless accumulation at the expense of our collective well-being. We really have to set a new, healthier baseline. To do that, let's redefine what we're actually chasing. In Islamic jurisprudence, wealth, or al-mal, is simply defined as something the soul naturally leans toward, something that holds genuine, recognized societal value. But there's a massive spiritual caveat here. Traditional scholars have this incredibly beautiful prayer that perfectly captures the idea. May God place wealth in our hands, not in our hearts. It's such a profound shift. Money is supposed to be a tool, a tool to serve humanity, build communities, and provide for your family. It is absolutely never supposed to be the master that rules your life. And the reason we've got to keep money out of our hearts is pretty simple. Human desire is infinite. There's this profound saying that if a human being were given an entire valley full of gold, they would just want a second one. You simply can't satisfy the soul with numbers on a screen. And that is exactly why it's absolutely crucial to set meaningful, value-driven goals for our wealth. If your wealth doesn't have a higher purpose, you're just running a race with literally no finish line. Okay, let's move into section 1, the economic cancer, unmasking riba, or interest. Once you understand the mechanics of how interest actually operates, you really start to see why our modern economy feels so fragile. Just look at the mathematical absurdity of guaranteed compounding interest. Get this, if someone lent out the equivalent of a few cents in the year 1 AD at a seemingly harmless 5% interest rate, by today, that compounding debt would equal the weight of 418,000 billion Earth-sized planets made entirely of solid gold. It's wild. It is mathematically impossible for the real physical economy to keep. Interest basically acts like a saw. It's eating on the way up and it's eating on the way down. In a conventional system, the bank or the lender is guaranteed their return regardless of what happens in reality. If the economy booms, they extract wealth. If the economy crashes, the borrower loses their business and their collateral, but the lender still legally extracts their guaranteed cut. It operates entirely outside the reality of shared human risk, which, when you think about it, is fundamentally unjust. Because of this dynamic, riba fundamentally acts as an invisible tax on society. It actively drives inflation because it forces the constant creation of new money just to pay off accumulating debt, without actually creating any new real-world value like goods or services. It creates this deeply warped, inverted pyramid where wealth is constantly shifted away from real producers. We're talking the engineers, the doctors, the honest entrepreneurs, and funneled directly to risk-free hoarders. It really is an economic cancer feeding off the healthy, productive cells of society. And the stark contrast between these two systems is honestly incredible. The conventional system guarantees returns for the wealthy while shifting 100% of the risk onto the borrower. But the Islamic system, it's built entirely on shared profit and shared loss. Finance must be inherently linked to tangible, real-world assets and genuine economic activity. If we win together. If we lose together. It's a financial system built on ultimate justice and empathy. Which brings us to section 2, the golden rules of Islamic economics. The absolute cornerstone of this ethical framework is al-kharaj bil-diman, and this simply means that the entitlement to profit is intrinsically linked to the assumption of risk. Basically, if you want to reap the rewards of an investment, you have to carry your fair share of the risk. There is no risk-free ride. If you lend someone 1,000 dirhams out of charity, You get exactly 1,000 dirhams back. But if you want a share of their business profits, you must enter as an actual partner. You simply cannot divorce profit from risk. Now, to maintain this fairness and actually protect society, the system implements some strict ethical prohibitions. First up, no excessive ambiguity, which is known as gharar. You can't sell a blind box or some unknown future outcome. Everything has to be transparent. Second, you absolutely cannot combine a loan with a sale just to hide interest. And third, you cannot sell what you do not currently own. This rule right here immediately eliminates the massive speculative short selling and artificial leverage that basically defines modern Wall Street. Every single transaction has to be grounded in tangible, transparent reality. And the real-world proof of this is fascinating. Extensive meta-analyses have shown that during the devastating 2008 global financial crisis, Islamic banks actually proved far more resilient than conventional banks. Why? Well, because the Islamic system explicitly forbids toxic debt derivatives and lending money that doesn't actually exist. By tying every single financial transaction to a real, physical asset or service, the model naturally crash-proofs itself against the kinds of speculative bubbles that regularly destroy conventional markets. So instead of relying on debt, the Islamic economy thrives on three ethical pillars. The first is zakat, which is an annual wealth tax. But here's the genius part. It's strictly applied to stagnant, hoarded wealth. It actively penalizes hoarding and basically forces capital back into productive, job-creating investments. Then we have WAF, which are perpetual endowments where individuals dedicate assets, like maybe a hospital or a school, strictly for societal good, permanently removing them from speculative markets. And finally, risk-sharing partnerships that truly bind the community's success together. Let's move right into Section 3, investing in the real economy. So how do we translate all these massive macroeconomic concepts into our daily lives? Well, it starts with a complete mindset shift regarding your savings. Passively storing your money or even just buying gold to lock it away in a safe somewhere actually stagnates the economy. The money isn't moving, no jobs are being created, and the Islamic system actually taxes this through zakat specifically to discourage it. Contrast that with funding real projects. When you actively fund an honest entrepreneur, you're injecting lifeblood into the community. You create jobs, you produce tangible goods, and you build a robust, blessed society. Here is how you actually do it in practice. Step 1 is your foundation. Absolutely refuse to participate in harmful, unethical ecosystems, whether that's interest-based debt, deception, or destructive industries. Step 2, look around and find trustworthy people in your community who have real-world skills but maybe lack the capital. Step 3, invest your money into their tangible projects. And Step 4, enter the agreement fully accepting the shared reality of both potential profit and potential loss. That is what true ethical commerce looks like. And that brings us to our final section, Section 4, your path to ethical financial freedom. Ultimately, true financial freedom in this paradigm is perfectly summarized by this really profound concept. The upper hand, which is the one that gives, is better than the lower hand, the one that receives. Financial freedom here isn't about buying a fleet of luxury cars or endlessly inflating your lifestyle. It's about having the independence to not be a burden on others. It's about escaping the humiliation and anxiety of debt and having enough surplus to actively help, give, and uplift the people around you. Now, to get there, you definitely need discipline. You've got to continuously learn high-value skills because your competence really is your greatest asset in a changing world. Draw a hard line and refuse any job or contract tied to interest and exploitation. Save diligently. And most importantly, build wealth through ethical partnerships. Taking just a few thousand dirhams to fund a friend's honest delivery or crafting business does infinitely more good for the real world than participating in a multi-billion-dollar speculative interest scheme. As you go forward, make your career choices, and decide what to actually do with your savings, I want to leave you with one final question. Will you build wealth that creates a resilient, just, and productive society, or will you feed the economic cancer of guaranteed interest and hoarding? The choice of how we define and pursue wealth is entirely in our hands. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this completely changes the way you look at your own financial footprint.